I want to react to this situation that happened in Arkansas. Apparently, like some young boys got burnt to death in a building. I had never heard of this situation. I ain't never even seen this shit before. I actually want to check it out and see what actually happened and what went down.
March 5th, 1959. In the small, segregated town of Wrightsville, Arkansas, the cries of 21 young boys echoed through the night as flames consumed the dormitory of the Negro Boys Industrial School. Trapped behind locked doors, their lives ended in agony, victims not just of a fire but of a system built on neglect and racial injustice. Their story has been overshadowed by time, a tragedy forgotten by many but etched deeply into the history of the Jim Crow South. The 1950s in the American South were defined by the harsh realities of Jim Crow laws, a rigid system of segregation that relegated black citizens to the margins of society. Poverty, disenfranchisement, and racial violence were everyday experiences for millions. For black children, the dangers were magnified. Labeled delinquent for minor infractions or acts of defiance against the racial order, they were funneled into reform schools that were little more than warehouses of neglect. Reform schools for black youth were institutions of punishment, not rehabilitation. They reflected the dehumanizing attitudes of the time, where black children were criminalized simply for existing in poverty or for defying white authority. The Negro Boys Industrial School in Wrightsville, Arkansas was a stark example of this neglect. Established to house black boys deemed delinquent, the school was underfunded and overcrowded, with deplorable living conditions. Dormitories were cramped, poorly ventilated, and devoid of basic safety measures. Staff oversight was minimal and resources for education or rehabilitation were non-existent. For these boys, many of whom were orphans or victims of systemic poverty, the NBIS was not a sanctuary, it was a prison.
Niggas be talking about racism, when niggas be talking about motherfucking being under the system and oppression and all this shit, this is what the fuck I be thinking. I don't be thinking that shit in 2026, nigga, because this ain't what's going on. Shit like this is happening to everybody if it's happening at any place in the world right now. It's not just happening to just black people no more. And we not confined like this no more. Crimes, I don't want to say, don't even happen like this to us no more. Like, the world of our knowing has grown into what it has now. People be want to talk that racial shit, but like, bro, this is what racism really look like, bro.
Night, 48 other black teenagers in a separate dormitory managed to break their way out of the burning building by jumping out of a window. However, the boys, aged 13 to 17, were locked inside their dormitory as part of routine protocol. When the fire broke out, there were no alarms, no sprinklers, and no escape routes. The doors, bolted shut from the outside, turned the building into a death trap. Witnesses described hearing their screams as the flames consumed the structure. By the time help arrived, it was too late. Investigations revealed glaring negligence, insufficient staffing, no emergency protocols, and a complete disregard for safety standards. But instead of accountability, the tragedy was met with silence. No charges were filed and no reforms were implemented. The lives of 21 boys were extinguished and the world moved on as though they had never existed. The boys who died in Wrightsville were more than victims. They were sons, brothers, and friends. Many were sent to NBIS for minor offenses. One boy, for example, was committed simply for riding a white boy's bicycle, a so-called crime, despite the white boy's mother giving him permission. Despite the magnitude of the tragedy, the fire at NBIS did not spark widespread outrage. Media coverage was minimal, and public officials avoided any acknowledgement of wrongdoing. This silence was emblematic of a system that devalued black lives and erased black suffering. The boys became a statistic, their names forgotten by all but their families and communities.
Events like Wrightsville are a reminder of how systemic racism operates, not just in acts of violence, but in the collective amnesia that follows.
The tragedy at Wrightsville is not an isolated story. It is a chapter in a long history of racial violence and institutional neglect. Today, the Arkansas Department of Corrections runs an adult prison called the Wrightsville Unit on the very land where NBIS was formerly located. The fire that consumed the dormitory at the Negro Boys Industrial School may have extinguished 21 young lives, but it ignited a legacy, a call to confront the injustices of the past and ensure that no child's life is ever again dismissed or forgotten. Remember their names, honor their stories, and
I want to say a rest in peace to all 21 of them children. It's 13 to 17 is tragic, and it's a tragic loss. Um, the main thing that I really want to focus on is this, like, this is what times really was like for black people at a point in time. It's not like that for us no more. I could really understand if we was like to act like how we acting now, if these things were happening today. But ain't nobody holding us back, man. Ain't nobody putting their foot on our neck. Ain't nobody setting us on fire in buildings, man. And then we got to remember where we come from, because at the end of the day, now we setting each other on fire. Shit, we might not be literally doing it, but shit, we taking our own lives. We doing a lot of things to ourselves, and destroying our own community, and destroying our own culture, and destroying our own reputations and things, because we just don't care what nobody think. When in reality, we need to care what, like, those before us would think, because at the end of the day, they went through a lot. They sacrificed a lot. It was a lot that went into the things that they did, not even just on no political level, but on like a living day-to-day level, and like the things that black men and children and women had to go through at the time. Like, we don't go through that no more. So you making up excuses about not being able to do something because white man and this, that, and the third. Yo, you really spitting in these people's faces. You really spitting in people like this faces. But rest in peace to them young man. I never heard of this, so I ain't gonna say technically it's systematic racism because it's stuff like this. I really feel like it's just the simple fact that black people don't carry things on into the new generation. We don't pass down no stories. We don't pass down no advice. We don't pass down nothing for real. A lot of stuff get lost in transition, and these are things that we gotta actually acknowledge and speak on, because this is an important event, and this is something I knew nothing about, but this seems very important to me. I feel like a lot of young men should hear this story. A lot of people should hear this story, period, point blank, in general, because times have changed. But the thing is, we can't forget the things that have happened. And I ain't saying on no racial type shit, more so than I'm saying on some, we as a people need to be more respectful of why we here, how we got here, and be understanding that we stronger than we were before, and we have more power than we did in the past. Not to look at this shit on a way to resent people and make it seem like we gotta hate white people and all racist and shit like that. Also, we need to be looking out for each other. We need to get back to normal. But y'all let me know what y'all think, man. I don't like these kids, especially when these teenagers, and even with the LA stuff. I don't be liking to see that, but they be young. They be 16, 15, 17, 21. Stuff like that. Get like, for what?
Gotta know your purpose or end up players when you get used. I was birthed from the beast of the valley. You will shoot all that wolfing niggas born when they know they really fooled. I'm confused. Since when did small fries